I'm Derek Laufman, the creator of Crimson Fall, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Derek Laufman about his latest graphic novel, Crimson Fall, The Shore Tower, I Hate Fairyland, and more. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Derek Laufman has been a professional comic artist and illustrator for 25 years and resides in London, Ontario. He studied classical animation at Sheridan College, and for several years now, Derek has been drawing and creating his own comics and graphic novels, including Ruinworld, Bot 9, and The Witch of Wickerson. He is currently illustrating I Hate Fairyland for Image Comics. Derek's newest series is entitled Crimson Fall, The Shore Tower. Crimson Fall is a horror fantasy anthology series that follows Sir Duncross, the infamous monster hunter, and his humble scribe, Father McKellen, who are hired to kill the fabled monster of Shore Tower Island. However, the secrets of the island run deep, and when the power of an ancient god is unleashed, they soon learn they are the ones being hunted. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Derek Laufman about his latest graphic novel, Crimson Fall, The Shore Tower, I Hate Fairyland, and more. So, Derek Laufman, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's great to catch up. I know you're very busy. I appreciate your time. And before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what are you reading today?
The latest thing I read was Bowling with Corpses by Mike Mignola. And it was really good. I really liked it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You can't go wrong with Mignola, that's for sure. Your newest series is Crimson Fall. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, what it's all about.
Yeah, so the quick elevator pitch is it's sort of like Hellboy meets The Witcher. It's a dark fantasy story about a monster hunter named Sir Duncross and his faithful scribe, Father McKellen, who sort of travels along with him and documents the various adventures in hopes to sort of like create a book that would help guide people to killing monsters like later and protect the realm sort of thing. So yeah, it's a fun little violent, more adult series that I have. And yeah, it's just been fun sort of like getting into my dark side a little bit more.
Okay, now you just mentioned adult. So if I were to ask you, the audience, is it more adult, or do you skew somewhere in the middle between young adult and adult? Where does this go?
All my creator-owned books up to this point have been all ages, with the intent that I don't write them for children necessarily, but certainly kid-friendly. My sort of idea is that adults would be able to read them and enjoy them. I don't dumb them down, if that makes sense. I don't talk down to the audience in that way. So yeah, this one is like the first one I've done that I was like, okay, this is definitely not for children. It's more violent. There's more cursing and, it's just more adult.
Okay. And you mentioned a couple of media types that were inspirations. Was there any specific thing that you said, aha, yes, I've got to make my own and it's got to be this?
No, there's a lot of sort of cool Monster Hunter books out there. And Headlopper comes to mind. It was always a big inspiration. But, I've just been a big fan of playing the Witcher game. I sort of dabbled in the books a little bit. I just really enjoyed Geralt as a sort of anti-hero character. And so sort of that was a big inspiration there. Game of Thrones, probably a good inspiration as well. I've always been in love with fantasy worlds and sort of like ones that are slightly more grounded, but have like a little bit more magic undertone. So it's not full fantasy, sort of like a splash of fantasy in there. And that's kind of where I was sort of trying to get to with Crimson Fall.
Okay. Because a lot of these types of stories need a lot of world building. Is that something you had in the back of your mind for a lot of time and it was just brewing until now you said, aha, we're good to go?
Not like super long. I mean, it's sort of like one of those things that I think just sort of like you get inspired by a lot of different things. You just sort of like plug it in the back of your brain and go, okay, like that's a cool setting. This is a cool feeling. I mean, the world building more comes when you're starting to write and do concept art for the world. So that's when it really starts to take shape in my mind. So it hadn't been permeated for years or anything like that. Yeah, I think like, I've dabbled in these sort of worlds, like with Ruinworld. My first graphic novel was a sort of monster hunting, treasure hunting, world that just was more kid friendly. So I think this sort of like thing's just kind of always been brewing in me.
Sure, sure. No, that makes sense. I mentioned we haven't talked for, gosh, some time. I think it was 2022. A lot has changed since then. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about maybe some changes that have happened to your workflow and more specifically, how that applied to making Crimson Fall.
Well, I'd like to say that I've become more efficient, but I don't think that's true. I don't, I, yeah, I'm still, I don't know. I am still trying to find a sweet spot of like sometimes I'll write more and draw less at the beginning, and sometimes I just have to start like sketching out pages, scenes a little bit more to start to visualize them. I haven't really found like this is the formula that just works. Sometimes I just need to, for a specific scene in the book, I need to actually draw it out visually to sort of get it to work in my brain. And then other times I can visualize it ahead of time. So I wish I had like a go-to like A, B, C, D, and I'll just do it like that, but I don't. I'm all over the place. So if anything, like I would say trying to make sure that I nail down the ending first, like at least like have that really solid before I start really digging in too much into the meat of the story. Because I've run into trouble before, sort of avoiding the ending and hoping I'd figure it out along the way. So I try to lock that down early on. So that's probably the best thing I've learned, but it's not always the case. So,
Sure, sure. Yeah, it changes along the way, I guess, depending on the project. What about the art style? You're definitely a traditional artist, right?
well, no, I do like a lot of digital. Like even like when I do traditional inked work, I'm usually going to be sketching it digitally first. I've just been working on a Cintiq for, I would say, a good 20 years of my career. So I'm just very used to that, and it's familiar, and it's quicker. I waste less paper and the benefits of just kind of working digitally. But I try to, when I can, like ink my work traditionally. It doesn't always happen. Kind of on I Hate Fairyland, I've been doing that all traditional for the inking side of things. So yeah, it just sort of like whatever works for whatever project.
Okay. Now, besides this podcast, how will you be promoting your book?
So I have TCAF coming up and MCAF, so Montreal Comics Arts Festival and Toronto Comics Arts Festival. Montreal is coming up in the end of May, well, May 20th, I believe. I can get my dates right. And yeah, I think that's when I'm leaving. And then TCAF will be June 7th. That's when that starts. So I'll be going to those shows, and those shows are both like more driven towards creator owned independent books. So that's really important for me as an independent creator to go in front of an audience that is welcoming to that thing and looking for that. And in particular, for Montreal, I have a French publisher for Crimson Fall and for my series Ruinworld that have given me these beautiful hardcover French versions of my book. And I figured Montreal is the perfect place to sell those.
Absolutely, yeah. Both great events, that's for sure. And I guess it's good to get out and about. As much as we were talking before, that we're stuck in our basements creating all the time. It's nice
Mhm.
to get out, and you've literally got to pound the pavement, so to speak, to meet people, get the story, get your face out there and your book out there. It takes a little bit of work, I guess.
Oh, definitely. Being able to connect with those people like right on the spot and talk about your work and have them like hold it and see it, ask questions. I mean, that's just the best way to sort of like bring in new readers. But I also like utilize like my social media and things like that, my newsletter, try to promote it that way. So it's been going well. We run a Kickstarter for Crimson Fall, The Shore Tower, the latest book. So that ran last year and that did really well. We were able to raise almost 100,000. So that was great. And I was able to get about 1,500 backers. So, really proud of like how that momentum is built up with the series. I'm really looking forward to like how it's going to expand in the future.
Sure. That sounds good. Now, you mentioned just previously here that you worked on I Hate Fairyland. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your work on that project.
Scotty Young had approached me last year and asked me if I'd like to take over drawing duties. Brett Bean was going to be moving on, who was the current artist. And I was like such a big fan of I Hate Fairyland for a very long time. It was really a big inspiration for me creating my own books. And I just had to jump at the chance. I usually would have turned down people who asked me to collab, but it was a special sort of situation that I couldn't pass up. And it's been an absolute dream so far, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, that's cool. Scotty Young is a tough shoes to fill there, but it's a very popular book, that's for sure.
No, definitely. Scotty's been nothing but encouraging the whole way through, to the point where he's probably inflating my ego a little too much. But no, it's been great. It's been absolutely great. Like it's all positive. I get to have like the most fun I think I've ever had drawing comics. He's just such a good writer, and the stories are just insane and wacky. And Gert is just amazing character. I just love having fun drawing her and Larry, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Fun is the word. That's what you want. So we've been talking about Crimson Fall and the fact that you've got I Hate Fairyland. What else is on your drawing board? What's next for you that you can talk about?
Well, I Hate Fairyland is ongoing for now for the foreseeable future. So it's a lot of I Hate Fairyland. I'm currently trying to work out a publishing deal for Crimson Fall. I've been talking with some people, and it's just been kind of like ongoing. Sometimes contracts can be really slow to finalize, but I'm hoping I have an announcement for that in the next few months. And it's a lot of I Hate Fairyland right now, and then it's I'm trying to fit in Crimson Fall where I can, and write and draw like the next story there. So yeah, it's pretty much those two projects are my main focus.
Well, that'll keep you busy, and people want to find out what's going on, not only today, but in the future. Where do you recommend they go online to find out about all the different aspects of what you've got going on?
So the very best way to follow me is if you go to my website, DerekLaufman.com. You can sign up for my newsletter, and that's kind of the best way to make sure that you're hearing about any upcoming sales or projects or release dates and things like that, shows I'm going to be at and all that.
Sounds good. Well, Derek, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
Just be awesome if people can check out Crimson Fall. Being a creator-owned series, it's exciting to see, people pick that up, and it's really special, obviously, when you've made something and people, moves people enough that they want to keep following it. And so definitely check that out. Check out I Hate Fairyland. My first issue drops in June, and we'll subsequently have more issues coming out each month after that, because it's going to be a monthly book. And so I hope people come check out my new stuff.
Thanks to Derek for the chat. You can discover more about Derek Laufman online at DerekLaufman.com and on Instagram at Instagram.com/Derek Laufman. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations and discussions about creators' insight on making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites. And you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.